Hello and welcome. My name is Melissa Galasso, and today I'm very excited to present to you one of the most recent ASUs coming out of the FASB. So we've made it a pretty long ways into 2023, November of 2023, 11 months out of the year done. And the FASB has only issued 7 ASUs, right? So it's been pretty interesting. We started the year pretty strong with leases right off the bat in March, and then kind of slowed down a little bit, and some very niche ones coming out. But ASU 2023-07 is a new ASU that we are going to talk about today that is going to impact public business entities. So private companies are not impacted because today's topic is on segment reporting. So ASU 2023-07 is improvements to reportable segment disclosures. And this is actually part of the post-issuance review that the FASB does when they issue standards. And so after a standard is issued, they look and get feedback from users, from preparers, from auditors about the operability of the standard. In addition, they have done several rounds of invitations to comment on agenda consultation that also influenced this particular standard. And users in particular like segment reporting because it provides information about the different business activities. And so while we don't require this of private entities, public companies have provided this for many years to really help understand the types of products, the types of locations and geographies that are impacting them. And investors supported enhanced disclosures, right? This is something that they are always looking for a little bit more information. Now, the good news is this standard does not change how we aggregate our segments, how we identify our segments, or how we apply any quantitative thresholds to determine what are our reportable segments. So this is not changing recognition or measurement. This standard is focused on disclosures, right? And so as we go through this, you're going to notice there are a couple of core areas. So again, as we talk about scope, this standard impacts all public entities that are required to report segment information in accordance with Topic 280, which is segment reporting. Private companies have been exempt for a long period. We have not done segment reporting before, but this is something that is very important to our public companies, and so they are the ones that are going to be subject to these new disclosures. So what are the types of things that we're going to look at here? So the first thing we're going to look at is significant segment expenses that are regularly provided to the CODM, which is the Chief Operating Decision Maker. And this is something that an organization has to determine. And so typically we're going to have somebody who makes decisions, and how they review that information is how we determine the segments, right? So how does the entity look at itself from a geographic perspective, from a product perspective, et cetera. And so one of the things that we want to get more information about are expenses. We already have provided segment reporting for a while on revenue, but now they want to disaggregate further the expense area. And so you're going to provide those expenses that are regularly provided to the CODM, included within each reported measure of segment profit or loss. And so this again is going to be a key additional disclosure not currently provided to investors that they think will really help them. Investors have been really interested in the P&L lately. If you've been following some of the invitation to comment as well as some of the recent proposals out there, there are 2 big proposals out. One is related to disaggregation of the information related to income tax expense. And so that standard looks at 740 and provides some additional disaggregation on income taxes paid, as well income tax expense. And so that disaggregation of that expense line item, very important to users. That standard does impact both public and private. The other one that's out there right now as a proposal is what we call DICE, or disaggregation of income statement expenses overall. That one only impacts public companies, similar to segment reporting. And that one focuses on disaggregation of income statement expenses overall, really targeting SG&A, selling general administrative, and requiring further disaggregation. So the income statement, obviously very important to the users of public company financial statements. And so you can see here that goal of getting more information around segment expenses. In addition, to account for other segment items by reportable segment and a description of its composition. So it would be required to disclose the amount of other operating expenses. And so this is sort of the catch-all. So the other segment category is the difference between segment revenue less the segment expenses that are disclosed under the significant expense principle, and then each reported measure of segment profit or loss. And so you're going to have your revenue minus the disclosable, right? The ones that you're choosing to provide those significant segment expenses. Well, what's your other? And so what's the amount of other by reportable segment and what's in there? So just provide a little bit of information. Again, you don't have to disaggregate it, but you do have to kind of give us a feel for what's in those other expenses. It also requires that a public company provide all annual disclosures about a reportable segment's profit or loss, currently required by Topic 280. So again, they're already in there, but now we're also going to apply them in the interim. Today, only some of the segment reporting is required on an interim basis. Now we're going to have a requirement to provide all segment information at both interim and final. So if you're currently providing a segment report at final, you're going to now include that information, again, already required, but you're going to also provide it at interim. And then it clarifies that if the CODM, again, the chief operating decision maker, uses more than one measure of segment profit or loss in assessing segment performance and deciding how to allocate resources, then a public entity can report one or more of those additional measures of segment profit. So the key here is at least one of the reported segment profit or loss measures should be a measure that is most consistent with the measurement principles used in measuring the corresponding amounts in the consolidated financial statements. So what does that mean? In other words, it should be consistent with GAAP, right? So if you're presenting GAAP, there should be one that is going to be most consistent with GAAP. However, you're not precluded from providing additional measures that are used. So for example, EBITDA is not a GAAP item, but if that is how you're looking at information, it is going to allow you to present information, or maybe you do certain adjustments that are not accrual accounting, or you do some adjustments to current GAAP. Again, you should measure the ones that's most consistent with GAAP, but then you can also provide these additional ones. They also want to disclose the title and position of the CODM and an explanation of how the CODM uses the reported measures of segment profit or loss in assessing segment performance and deciding how to allocate resources. So again, who is this person and how are they using segment profit or loss in looking at performance? What is the process that they're going through? And then finally, if a public entity that has a single reportable segment. Now, this is not popular because of the requirements around segments, but if you still can get to, and it is possible, a single reportable segment, you still have to provide all the disclosures required under this ASU, as well as all of the other required existing disclosures under Topic 280. So if you're going to say, I only have one segment, fine. You still have to provide this information for that segment, which is the organization. So I think this is, again, trying to get more information. They don't really love single segments, and they're not very popular because they don't really love them. But if you are going to come to that conclusion, that doesn't mean you get to skip doing segment reporting, basically, is the theory here. And so when are we going to have to do this? We're going to have to do this for fiscal years beginning after December 15th of 2023 and interim periods within fiscal periods beginning after December 15th, 2024. So again, this is going to be a calendar 24 fiscal for the annual, and then your interim ones after, because again, we know that's going to take a little bit of time. However, early adoption is permitted. So if public companies want to do it for their calendar 23 year ends, they are more than welcome to. All right, so that is a wrap on this nano. Hopefully you learned a lot about segment reporting. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.